We're live.
Yay!
Ask me anything. Happy hour. Cheers, everybody.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how people can get in these chat. I mean, I'm just hoping they can figure it out because I don't know. Ooh, why is it circling back to me? Did you hear that?
No.
Oh my God. It is like, okay. But if I don't, like I'm hearing the conversation like 5 seconds after it happens.
What if you do it without your headphones?
Like I'm hearing
Nope, there it goes. Hear it?
Conversation like 5 seconds after it happens.
Why is it doing that? Where's our tech support? Your headphones.
Like I'm hearing
Nope, there it goes. Hear it? Oh, you know what? It's because I have the live page up. Fixed. Hooray. There we go. Ooh, that was not going to work. I'm going to put my headphones on.
Are you going to watch Patreon and I watch Twitter like we usually do? Is that the plan?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Let me go on. Well, we have a bunch of list of questions already. I want to start with the morning routine. I love morning routines. And I love talking. Somebody asked what our morning routines are like.
Oh, you start.
I love morning routines, and I particularly love talking about morning routines. Who asked us? Let's see. Sarah asked, what does your morning routine look like on a typical morning? Okay. So I wake up usually around 6 a.m. Sometimes I get up and go to the gym. This is going to get overly complicated quickly, but I only have to go to the gym twice a week to get my work to pay for it. And the other times I like to walk outside or do yoga sometimes. So if that's a gym day, I get up and go to the gym, and then I try to do my meditation later in the day. That is usually a failure. So I'm trying to tweak it a little bit. If it's not a day, then I wake up and I journal, and I sketch out my bullet journal, like what I'm grateful for this morning, what my goals are for the day. I read a chapter of Tools of Titan, which I'm getting through. And even though I find Tim Ferriss really annoying, but the book is good.
Tell us about that.
Tools of Titans is like he took every interview he's had on his podcast. Hold on, let me show you. And they're like in sections. So there's like a section on health, wealth, and wisdom, I think are the 3 sections. And so let's see here. Like here's Tony Robbins' page. And so he'll just like take the best parts of that interview and like what he thought was like super awesome about what Tony Robbins said. I'll like underline this quote. If you let your learning lead to knowledge, you become a fool. If you let your learning lead to action, you become wealthy. Sure, Tony Robbins. Okay. Tony Robbins is long. It's like 5 pages, but usually they're only like a page or 2. So I read that and I do my journal and I do my little, right now I'm doing a planner I printed out. This is the reason I like to talk about morning routines is the same reason that I have a bunch of like planner journal things, because I just love this shit so much. So this one is called the Self Journal. And I do like this one because every day you do your schedule on this side, what you're grateful for in the morning, your overall goals, there's a little quote, your targets for the days. And then at the end of the day, you write your wins, your lessons learned, and what you're grateful for at the end of the day. So big news, everybody. What I was grateful for is they accepted our offer, and I'm going to get to move into a new house, and I'm so excited. So I do that, and then I meditate. I meditate using Tara Brock's meditation podcast. And then I wake up, and I feed all my hungry kids. Get Griffin and Amos out the door with Nicholas at 8 o'clock. Then I feed Felix, get him ready for school, and then we're out the door by 9. That's my morning.
My morning is absolutely nothing like that.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, so I wake up around 6-ish. I usually get through email and like the Twitter backlog from the night before. I read the Richard Rohr email. That's our overlap.
Yeah, I read that too. I read that.
sometimes I read the skim, to be honest with you. More often I just read the quote at the beginning that
Me
they
too. I love the quote. And then I usually like the last story, but man, it's getting real dumb up in the skim.
I think it is too. It's really like, I think I must be out of their demographic or something. Maybe they decided to skew way younger, but I think even that's a little condescending. So anyway, I look at my phone, unfortunately. That is how I start my day. I hop in the shower. I get ready as fast as I possibly can because I am always trying to get ready, completely ready, clothes on, hair done, makeup done before my children wake up so that we can get out the door once they do wake up. So I take the next time to get ready for work. We get the girls dressed. Chad usually walks our dog and then makes everybody breakfast, which is a godsend.
That's nice.
My new thing lately is to eat eggs in the morning and
Yes.
oatmeal or cereal, and I am definitely finding that I feel better doing that. And then we get in the car, we get on the bus, I take Ellen to her babysitter, and then I drive 40 minutes to work and listen to the Daily on my way in. And
I've been listening to the Daily too.
If I have a long commute because of traffic or whatever and the Daily doesn't get me there, then I usually turn on something that makes me feel good. Lately it's been Oprah's Super Soul podcast. Sometimes it is Being Boss or just something else that's lighter and not news related for that last little bit into work.
So I did the Whole30 in 2013, and I've eaten eggs every morning for breakfast since 2013. Once I switched the other stuff, like, look, I'm not trying to lie and say I eat paleo all the time, but like, man, eggs for breakfast are where it's at. I cannot eat like dairy or carbs or anything like that anymore. It makes me feel like dick.
I had one morning where I had a bowl of cereal instead, and I was like, oh
man, so bad.
So much worse than when I'm eating the eggs. So
it's like 9:45. I'm like, shh.
Yeah. So I'm honest about the fact that I am rudely eating during this conversation. I did not have time for dinner, and happy hour without some food seemed unwise. So if you see me gravitating to the left, it's because I made myself this cheese tray that I'm just nibbling on while I think I should show the cheese tray. Let me see if I can.
People like a cheese tray. That's a pretty cheese tray.
I mean, it's a pretty good thrown together little cheese tray, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just took a shower, so I'm kind of in the...
Because you were at the ball game because you're devoted ball game people.
Yes, we're very devoted baseball people.
Okay, I want to see if there's anything that's not... like super... Well, people want an update on your new project.
Okay, and Karen is having trouble with the link on Patreon. I don't know if anybody else is.
But okay, let me try to post it again just to make sure.
We can work on that. So I decided as part of scaling back at my job, the law firm that I work for, I wanted to think about doing some consulting or coaching work. And my new mantra, because this has served us so well with Fancy Politics, is that I don't want to do things that I wouldn't do for free. So I feel like that's been our guiding light with Fancy Politics from the beginning. And I'm trying
It wasn't even a guiding light. It was just the reality. We were doing it for free.
It was such good advice, to not get into this, to make money. And so I'm trying to take that elsewhere. That said, I do need to make some money. So I've been thinking about how to bring all those things together. And what I realize is my favorite thing that I do in my job at Taft and just in my life casually is coach people individually. Like, how do you get unstuck when you're really struggling with something? If you don't know what you want to be doing with your time, how do you figure that out? If you're struggling with relationships or just not happy and you can't really name why, that's when I'm really good, getting in there and helping solve those problems.
I really think we should have named your consulting business Beth Becomes Your Chief of Staff.
Oh, I like that. That is kind of what I'm going for because it's not therapy and it's not like it's not executive coaching. It's just let's help you live your best life. And so thinking about how can I do this within the context of my life, which has a lot of other pieces, I came up with this program that I'm calling Checking In. And the idea is you're busy, you don't have a gazillion dollars or a gazillion hours. So let's do 3 months together where most weeks your commitment is 20 minutes whenever you can fit those 20 minutes in to check in with me. And then I'll read your check-in or listen to it, however you decide to do it. You could email me, you could do a voice memo, whatever, and then I'll just respond. And we'll have a conversation that way. we'll get together for longer periods at different times during that 3 months. But it's really to be like focused time to concentrate on your life, taking a step back to reflect, and hopefully like help you develop a habit of checking in with yourself after that 3-month program is over. So that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm working with a couple of fabulous people to help me with the website, to get that up and running, and also still just kind of refining that concept and figuring out what I want to do with it. But thank you for asking.
Yeah, I bet people are going to be excited. I bet people are already excited. I'm excited. Okay, so do you have any non-political stuff on your end?
I do not yet. I just have Karen, who is...
Did she get it? I posted new links.
She said that she upgraded her iPhone and can't click. And I will say, these iPhone updates, they can be a pain for a while.
Oh, did she have the OS 11 or whatever it is?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Karen, I'm sorry. We will definitely post this again if you can't get in now.
So, okay, some of the other questions politically inclined. Let's see here. What are you doing? Go back. Well, more comments. Okay, that must be the first one. Oh, people wanted some update on the concerns about who I did not vote for. Did or did not vote for.
I want that update too.
There hasn't been anything else. No other. Actually, I mean, I guess they could be posted on that same Facebook post, but I bought a house. I ain't got time for that shit. So I have not been paying attention. We do have a Democratic Executive Committee meeting, so that should be fun. I can't wait to see what happens there. So I won't have an update until the meeting, a real update.
Is passive aggressive Polly on that executive committee with you?
Yes, she is.
Interesting. That will be good.
Yeah.
Please report back.
What topics are we interested in discussing for future episodes?
So many. I love it when we get to talk about two vastly different things. I love it when we get to do like super wonky episodes like the tax reform, or whenever we get into North Korea or some kind of foreign policy. And then on the total opposite end of the spectrum, I love it when we do episodes that get super philosophical, just light stuff.
I was going to say the same thing. I agree.
We can take a lot of things there that might not naturally fit into that category. So we talked about, we think we're going to do the nuanced relationships next. We've talked about doing something more focused on heroin. We've talked about doing something on domestic abuse. When Hellbent comes on with us in October, we're going to talk about gun laws, and specifically gun laws as they relate to domestic violence, and domestic violence as sort of runway to more serious crimes, because there's so much research out there about that. So that's what comes to mind for me.
I think that we will probably have to revisit tax reform sooner rather than later, as they get more specifics on what they're proposing. And we haven't really done a show on infrastructure either, which I think could be really interesting. So those are two sort of policy issues that I think could be cool. I'd really like us to go back to more like, what are our legislative solutions to these problems?
Yeah, I agree. What I don't want to talk about, honestly, is whatever the latest in the Russia investigation is. I just can't.
I say we wait until indictments. Once indictments start rolling, though, we got to start talking about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can't ignore big newsworthy things. But the one thing that I think related to all that that would be interesting to talk about is what, and it's kind of a conversation we've circled around with antitrust and other things, but what responsibilities do social media providers owe the public?
Did you read that editorial? Well, I don't know if I've posted it yet. I put it in we have a little line of articles that I'll post over time. There was a really good New York Times thing about Zuckerberg being like, when he gets it wrong, he fixes it. I thought it was really good.
It was good. And I thought it was interesting to hear Mark Zuckerberg described as reactive, like best in his reactive mode, because that's not how I would think of him at all. But it made total sense to me. But, thinking about, like, Facebook is always in this hard position because with Russia, there's this national interest in them being so cooperative, but it does set this precedent for individual privacy issues. So I think all of that is
I would like to talk about more tech policy generally, like artificial intelligence, more their role with diversity and monopolies. I think there's a lot there.
I agree.
Okay, so what else? Let's see. Oh, I like this question a lot. Karen asked, "What event?" I hope this is not the same Karen who's having trouble get on, and if it is, I hope she's been able to get on. What event in your life most influences the way you view and evaluate policy? I thought that was a really good question.
That is a really good question.
I mean, I'm not going to be able to just pick one. I think, actually, you know what? This would be really interesting conversation to have with Anne Bogle about reading people. Because we want to have her come on and talk about her new book because she does introverts and extroverts and that whole conversation about politicians. But I think your
personality and like how you take in information is so indicative of how you think about policy too. I mean, I will say that and the reason I said that is because my personality is so like, I'm a big picture person. I'm a question the status quo person, and I'm a very empathetic person. I think the empathetic part was my personality to begin with, but being involved in a shooting at my high school when I was young was hugely instrumental to like putting that on crack, sort of like because I saw a news event and I know that I've been the person on the nightly news on NBC Nightly News, like walking across the front of my school. Because I remember vividly in high school seeing myself on NBC News and being like, oh, those are real people. Those are actual real people whose lives were affected by these news events. So I think that's a huge part of it. And that might be one of the biggest. There's lots of things I've learned, like being a student, that have changed my perspective. But as far as sort of those three drivers for me, which is, like I said, big picture, question the status quo, and like empathy, I think so much of it is just my personality.
So what's interesting is that I would describe myself using those three characteristics as well. And I also have had the experience of being the news, not in such a dramatic way, but when I had the car accident that I've talked about on the show before, you know, I was thinking when I first saw this question on Patreon, like, I can't make sense of anything about my life without thinking about that event. And I do think I remember so vividly seeing my name in the newspaper, you know, Beth Thurman, 17, was driving such and such road. And I remember specifically feeling like, oh my gosh, people are going to read that a 17-year-old had this car crash and think, like, what goofing off was she doing? Like, she wasn't paying attention, and just not understand, you know, what happened here and how I feel about it. So I think I have that level of empathy too. The one thing that I think in my personality kind of drives me to a more right of center viewpoint, but gosh, Sarah, I think you have this too. I really don't like authority.
No, I don't. Don't boss me.
Authority. And that's one thing that consistently appears in this behavioral assessment that I like to take, which will be part of my consulting thing too, the Divine Inventory. Like, every time I am super strong on, I don't like authority. I don't do well with authority. If somebody is cramping my style in any way, I'm absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
And I think that probably influences how I look at policies, because I think, what's the potential for overreach by authority here? What authority is this creating? What authority is this unintentionally creating? And I did have some like teachers that I felt that way about. So maybe you could trace it. If you're looking for events, maybe you could trace it back to some school experiences where I felt like there was really some ceilings put in place, and then carry that forward into work too.
You know, I also think being with somebody since I was 19 years old and being married really young influences the way I think about things. Maybe not policy-ness. Oh, sometimes. Because I was raised in such a traditional way and I got married and I did things like in a very traditional manner, I do have like really conservative streaks in me, which is sort of weird because I like to question the status quo. But there is a part of me that's like, you know, like I've said before, I do think people should get married before having kids. I don't care who you marry, but I would like you to get married. It's like stuff like that. Like, I think some of those early like life events, and the fact that I've been in this relationship for so long with somebody whose, you know, perspective and way they think about policy has influenced me so much too.
And that's where we're really different. I didn't meet Chad until I was 24. We got married when I was 26, and then we had Jalen 30.
You know, some people in like New York City are laughing their asses off right now at you describing 24 different from 19 and like 21 different from, you know what I mean? Like somewhere some people are being like, I didn't get married until I was 35. Those were not that different.
Yeah, I know. And I felt young when we got married still, but I recognize that that's much older than a lot of people, especially in Kentucky, started with me. And I think just the fact that like I moved away, but I moved away in a moderate way compared to you. And then you came all the way back home and I stayed my moderate away from my hometown, and don't have any thought of returning to my hometown at any point in my life. So I think those things probably influence both of us in directions that are unexpected, but maybe that's why we find so much common ground.
I think before the next question, we should take a puppy break. Oh, look, everybody. Puppy break. She's really tired today. This is not a question, but I just want to share this because I was traumatized. We were at the pool today, and Nicholas and I were sitting in chairs beside the pool, and the 3 boys, a neighbor child, a friend of ours, and his child were all in the pool. I was watching Felix. He was sitting on a float, and then I looked up, and Felix was not there, and I was like, oh my God, where's Felix? And I was thought, he's under the float. He's dead. He's under the float, and he's died. He had gotten out of the pool in mere moments, clearly, and walked out of the gate, and it was across the street. It was awful.
I'm so glad he was across the street, though.
Yeah, and I don't have any, by the way, I live on a dead-end street, so him crossing the street was, like, not a situation. But, oh, my God, I thought he'd drowned. It was awful. It was so off for, like, 20 seconds, you know, those moments. And then for, like, the rest of the afternoon, I was, like, living an alternate reality in which my baby had just died in the pool. Oh, my God, what would that have been like? What if I'm just holding him? Because, you know, I've been on the flip side of those tragedies where you're like, no, I'm going to go back 10 seconds and everything's going to be different. So, like, being on the positive side of that was just, oh, man, it was intense.
If you were in my program, I would tell you that that's not a very good use of your mental energy.
Yeah, I know. I didn't do it very much. I mean, it was more like a gratefulness. But also, I have a lot of good things happening in my life, so I'm already sort of in that foreboding joy place that Brené Brown talks about where you're like, everything's going great. Everyone's going to die now, obviously. Probably me. I'm going to die. Everybody else is going to die. You know, when everything's going well, you're like, well, this isn't going to last. So I'm trying to breathe in and just be grateful, but that really threw me for a loop today.
Well, I'm glad.
He's fine, yes, but it was very scary. Okay. This is a good one, too. Paul says, given mine and many others' concerns about what's happening with the Trump administration, how should I try and focus my efforts locally at the state level and nationally? I'm sure things vary by location, swing statiness, but I'm in California, so it's not like my senator's rep needing convincing. And actually, this is a good relationship to Sarah's other question, which was, I'm a liberal and just moved from a purple state to Massachusetts. Formerly, I called my senators and representatives frequently to voice my opinion on legislation, but now they all share my views. I mean, I'm represented by Elizabeth Warren. How would you recommend staying involved and making my voice heard now that my representatives are more likely to going to vote in my favor? So I have a couple thoughts. What do you think, Beth?
I think that where you live is part of it, but more than that, it's who you are, what your skills are, what your interests are. I'll give you an example. You know, I've said on the podcast before, I'm not really a marcher. Like, I'm not an extrovert. I'm not a group kind of person. So I just submitted written testimony to the Ohio legislature as for a group that called Equality Ohio, that supports House Bill 160, which in Ohio would make discrimination on the basis of gender identity or LGBTQ affiliation in general against the law. And so I wrote this whole thing as a business person about the importance of inclusive non-discrimination laws.
Cool.
And you know, that's something that my profession, my skill set, and my personality make a good way for me to contribute. That's much more effective than me showing up at a Pride March. That doesn't mean that anybody else showing up at a Pride March is not impactful. It absolutely is. Those numbers are important. That kind of public display is important. But I would just say, Paul and others, you know, what do you have to bring to the table, and bring that. And that might mean that you want to run for school board, or it might mean that you're going to write letters to the editor about topics that are important, or whatever it means, but I would look at your individual skill set and never ever feel like there isn't work for you to do.
Yeah. Well, I have two thoughts. The first thought is about the representatives who agree with you. Still call. I used to work in a congressional office, and it was really nice when people called and said nice things like, you're doing a great job, I agree with you. In fact, I call Rand Paul when he does something good that I agree with just as much as I call Rand Paul and be like, get your shit together. I don't like what you're doing right now. P.S. I don't bother calling Mitch McConnell. But I do call Rand Paul often.
It's hard to get anybody to answer the phone in Mitch McConnell's.
Yeah, but I call Rand Paul's Hopkinsville office or Bowling Green. I think maybe Bowling Green. Me and the lady, we have a little relationship. It's going great. The other thing I think you're exactly right, which is I don't think you can force it. It's just gonna be very honest. I like to think if you're doing anything, like if you're getting involved out of a sense of like duty or responsibility, like you're just not gonna keep it up. If it's not something that you like to do and it's not something that fits your skill set and it's a cause you're passionate about, you're just gonna burn out really quickly. So I think it's important to think about, like, if you're passionate about a national issue, and you feel like the senator is already on board, well, then find a national organization that supports that issue and see what you can do, maybe in a surrounding state or something like that. Because I just think that, like I said, like trying to force it, it's not going to go very well.
The one thing that I think isn't a great use of time, and I learned this from Emily Ellsworth, and I believe her, is contacting representatives when you're not one of their constituents.
Yeah, I don't do that. Because I used to do that job. Yeah, I'm not writing a letter back to your butt, so sorry.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think it's not it's not going to have the high impact that I think that you want to have when you're spending your time and energy on this stuff.
Okay, let's see what other questions we have. What are you guys doing to stay hopeful and engaged in things outside of politics and world affairs during these discouraging days? I bought a house. That's my answer. Because I love packing and organizing and decorating, and this is going to fuel my happiness for months. So that's my answer. No, I go outside, do the things you're supposed to do. I have an amazing husband. I have great friends and community. It's very easy for me, even when I'm most discouraged, to just look at this amazing town and this amazing community I'm a part of. Like this week we have the UNESCO Creative Cities coming, like people from like 12 different countries, other UNESCO cities are coming to Paducah with like Travel and Leisure magazine and all this stuff. Paducah's killing it. So that's always something that leaves me energized as well.
I don't know why, but I don't find this to be a struggle because I think there's just always going to be stuff. If it weren't the national news, it would be family drama or illness somewhere. Or I think I just have a real sense, like I said on a previous episode, that 50% of life is going to suck, and you've got to figure out how to enjoy the other 50%. So I'm not doing anything dramatic like house buying. I am more kind of inwardly focused right now on sort of what does the pie chart of my life look like? Do I like how I'm spending my time? Where can I get more of that sense of I'm doing work, but it's work that I would do for free? I'm kind of a workaholic. Like, I'm pretty intense. I realize this more about myself all the time. Even about Pantsuit Politics, I can get kind of overly intense sometimes. But Pantsuit Politics is a source of joy for me. Like, even when I think about there's things going on, the way that people express those thoughts with us always gives me hope. Now, I mean, there are things about it where I get a little down. Like when we get bad reviews and stuff, occasionally that will get to me, but I'm trying to...
Don't read them, don't care.
Yeah, shorten the window of time that gets to me. Well, because it's usually like Beth isn't conservative, right? I mean, so I take that a little bit personally, but I'm working on that. But for the most part, this is super uplifting for me. Even when I
would also say, I read an article when you said that about 50% of life. I read an article that was like, this is going to sound harsh, but it was like, we don't deserve to be happy. This is a thing we invented in like the last 50 years, that you're supposed to live a happy life. Like, if you met somebody who lived in like the early 1900s, they wouldn't know what the fuck you were talking about. Like, it just wasn't a thing. So I think that's part of it. Like, maybe we should all just like ease up on ourselves about being happy all the time. Like, just be cool. And also, I think that, I think what I've learned as I've gotten older is there are plenty of beautiful moments, even when things are really hard. Like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's not like you're just like existing in sucky times or existing in happy times. Like, there is a good mix of both usually at any time. And when you like sort of relieve, it's like it's like we do teams with happiness too. Like, you're even on the happiness team, you're in Gretchen Rubin's team, and we're all happy and we're all doing all the things to make ourselves happier. Or what? You're failing and you're a pessimist and you're cynical. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, let's find a healthy mix here.
Well, because the truth is, without the contrast, what good is any of it?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know happy if you don't know sad? And Sarah and I have been texting a lot about Oprah's conversation with the nun that was posted.
That nun was on fire.
She was amazing. But the part that I loved, well, I don't know, I loved all of it.
I was fixing to say, I can't pick a part.
I've listened to it twice, and I'm probably going to listen to it again. One part that I really loved was when she talked about living as a prayer, and then Oprah was like,
yes.
And she said, it just means seeing God in everything, like seeing, and whether you're a religious person or not, I think that sense of seeing the connection in everything, or the purpose in everything, or being able to see love in everything, whatever that is so much better than all this self-help crap about being happy all the time. We're not wired for that.
I feel that there is nothing better than a radical nun, like, in the world. And that nun, I wish I looked up her dang name since we're talking about it so much.
I'll do that.
Oprah, okay. And I just think that she was on point about so many things. But the idea that, and when she said this amazing thing I posted about, we teach the young to succeed, the middle-aged to consume, and the elderly to be silent. And I think that's why you and I, which I think is fair to describe us as middle-aged, really feel that consumption angle too. And I think that's what gets all nasty and mixed up with happiness, is you have to consume to be happy. And, it's just a toxic stew. Okay.
You said that we're middle-aged, but it's true.
That's true.
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you something. So I did that. The nun's name, by the way, is Sister Joan.
Sister Joan.
Sister. So I gave this speech at the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce's Women's Regional Initiative Summit. It's a mouthful. And I only did the name because I had to say it 15 times when I made a promo video for it. But so I gave this talk, and afterwards, this woman who was, she was probably early 60s, came up to me, and she was like very serious. She put her hand on my arm. She said, when I walked in here and saw you, I was like, what is this 20-something-year-old going to teach me about anything?
God bless you.
Thank you, because I am nowhere near 20-something. And she was like, you put me in my place very quickly, and I found it very valuable. So it ended up being really nice. But it made me laugh because of the age thing, but also just because I think that's a fair thing to think, right? This person's younger than me, what do they have to offer? And I'll be honest, I sometimes look at people in her age cohort and think, you're probably going to say something that's not relevant anymore.
Yeah. Well, here's what else I thought when she said that thing about success, consumption, and silence. I thought about that amazing article Anne Helen Peterson wrote about the two women in The Keepers, which you haven't watched it yet. That's not your thing, right? You're not going to watch that, are you? It's really good. And there's these two women. So it's about this nun who was killed at a Catholic school in the 70s, I think, or late 60s maybe. And then there's all this intrigue that maybe the priest who was abusing a lot of girls at the school was involved somehow. And there's all this decades of stuff. And so it really came about because there are these two former students of the sister who were like, we want to know who killed our teacher. We really loved her. And they hit retirement. And Anne Helen Peterson sort of makes the case that they've lost all value in the sight because they're not sexual beings and they're not reproducing. So the sort of main two ways that women find value or that our culture tells women they are valuable, they're not. And they teach women at that age that they're invisible. And she's like, and they used it as a superpower. As this idea that we will not be silenced, that we will use the fact that you don't take us seriously to worm our way in and get answers. And they got real, for the first time, got close and started this Facebook group with other women that were students at the time. It's a really great article. And I thought immediately of that whole language. And my grandmother says that. My grandmother says you get to a certain age and you just, when you're old and you just become invisible. Mm-hmm. Man. But I love the idea of flipping that and using the invisibility as a superpower. I think that's so great.
Well, it's interesting in what we do too, because sometimes I wonder if we are going to be too old for podcasting or for media in general quickly. But then I think about who I really like listening to at this point in my life, and they are 40-ish, 50-ish year old.
Yep.
women.
Yep.
So hopefully we have a few good years left.
Oprah all the time. Katie said, I know that Beth doesn't think the federal government is the best agent to run a national healthcare system. Where do you think we should be moving for a more sustainable healthcare system that has a healthy balance of public and private involvement? I'd love a single payer system, at least a basic one that maybe had opportunities to purchase additional private coverage, but I'd like to understand what a responsible conservative vision for healthcare could be.
That's a tough one for a Friday night when
I was going to say, on the spot, craft a national healthcare policy. Go.
Yeah. So, so here's my kind of overarching vision. I would like us to get rid of all tax laws that incentivize employer-sponsored plans. I would like a conversation with business leaders and the government about the fact that that will require higher wages and perhaps some kind of tax treatment to incentivize wage increases at the same time that employers get out of the healthcare business.
Cosign.
And then I would like to see a coalition of governors and the United States federal government talking about what's the best infrastructure for individual markets. We do that infrastructure better at the federal level or at the state level, because I don't know the answer to that. I suspect it could be at the federal level through some kind of private-public partnership. I don't think the federal government is in a position to solely administer a national healthcare marketplace. What I'm envisioning with marketplace is multiple carriers, lots of different plan designs. You can go shopping for the plan that meets your needs best, because it's clear to me, having gone through multiple open enrollment processes on the employer side, when you're trying to design health insurance plans, and let's say you're trying to design 3 plans for a population of employees, and you start putting names just mentally into those 3 plans, it's so clear that 3 plans are inadequate for any population of people. So I think lots of plan designs, lots of carriers. I do think we need carriers competing with one another so that we get good service.
What do you think about just erasing the state lines? I'm not sure why they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that depends on the infrastructure question. So if the decision is we're best off doing these marketplaces at the state level, then I think it's fine for states to regulate. If we think that it's best done at the federal level, which if I'm a betting person, I would bet that's where it comes out, do some kind of public-private partnership for that system. So I'm thinking of something like Amazon for insurance, right? That's the shell that holds all of these plans where you can go shop. And then, yeah, get rid of the state line regulations so that it's clear what goes in there and what doesn't. I would back way off of the essential health benefits requirements.
That's what I might answer, because that was what I was going to ask you. Like, how much variability can there be if they're all required to cover a certain amount?
I would let that go, and I would pass regulations requiring serious disclosure around that, so that an ordinary human being without a law degree understands what they're buying right up front. And I would also at the same time pass price transparency regulations for healthcare providers.
But isn't there concern that if you get rid of those and you have cheap plans, even if people understand what they're getting, you're going to put all the healthy people in the cheaper, less coverage plans, and then you're going to have high risk pools that aren't going to get affordable coverage, because all the healthy people are going to go choose the cheap, bare bones thing.
Now, I'll tell you that I have not, so with the experience that I have, which is very limited, of seeing what it looks like when people have high deductible options that are less expensive than options that cover a lot and are more expensive in premiums, I do not see evidence of that kind of adverse selection. Because people not only think about their health, they think about their risk tolerance in making those decisions. questions.
Well, that's probably true.
And a good website a good exchange kind of website will ask you those questions and get you thinking about the money, not just about your health, because we're all at risk of something catastrophic happening to us at any time.
Well, but I still think you're going to have that self-sorting where you're going to have, look, there's two people. I think there's two groups. There's those of us who, and let's just give everybody the benefit of the doubt. So there's this big pool of us who are mostly healthy, and we try to be responsible and think about catastrophic, and we're not necessarily opposed to like high deductibles, but we're really focused a lot on like how much it costs. And then there's people with like chronic health problems and like who are really just trying to get the coverage they need. And I still worry that they're going to not mix in a way that makes it more affordable for these people.
Look, they're probably not. I don't think there is a design for a national healthcare system that doesn't require subsidizing certain chronic illnesses.
Okay.
I just think that's, and whether that is a medicated.
Well, there is if you put everybody together automatically. That's just another way of subsidizing.
Listen, that is subsidizing. Exactly. Yeah. That is. So one way or another, we are going to have to help. And I think that's fine. I don't have any problem helping people in those situations. For everyone else, and for them too, though, I think that competition among carriers is a way to maintain accountability and is a way to allow people to make changes when they don't like what's happening. And I also think that, I do think that regulation is important. I don't want free market, Rand Paul free market version, because I think that there needs
I love him. We're not going to be mad at him. He's still got the no vote.
I'm not mad at him at all. And I understand why he believes what he believes. And I don't think it's heartless. I think he genuinely believes that leads to better results. I'm just not there with him. So that was a long-winded way of saying get employers out of healthcare, get everybody into the individual market so the individual markets can actually work so that carriers want to be there, issuing these policies, give carriers freedom to issue all kinds of policies, make sure people understand what they're buying, make sure healthcare providers are transparent about their prices so that people can make better informed decisions. I think that starts to get to let's drive
healthcare costs,
the cost of healthcare. And subsidize the high-risk pools because that's what we're going to have to do in any scenario.
Also, we just did a better job than Graham Cassidy, and we've had a cocktail. Cheers. Okay. I just thought of a good show topic. We should talk about the deficit.
Yes, we should talk about the deficit.
That would be a good one. I would like to do a primer on the deficit because I don't feel like I know enough. Okay. That sounds really bad as a Democrat, doesn't it? That makes me sound like such a Democrat.
No, Maggie Penton and I have been working on that, one of our listeners. She did a whole bunch of work on it, and then I didn't get back to her forever because Donald Trump happened. But we're gonna get that done one of these days because I'm geeking out about the deficit too.
Sarah had another good question for us. She says, did you ladies do something fresh out of college, personally, professionally, or financially that really set you up for success? No, I went to law school, and that certainly didn't set me up financially for success. That's unfair. I'm glad I have a law degree, and actually I've gotten a lot of professional success and professional opportunities from my network from law school, but don't take on a lot of debt just the same. I was thinking about this when she asked it, and I think a big thing I did is I just met so many people through graduate school and those experiences. And I think people think when they're 20s, they need to meet like older, more experienced people. But really, I've had so many opportunities from my peer group network, just like getting internships and experiences and stuff like that.
So this is another way we're really different. We both went to law school, but I went to law school where I had a scholarship. I did not take a lot of debt out. I took some, but not a ton. I took the biggest firm job that I was offered and went to that big firm and started out at a salary that was more money than I thought I would ever make in my life. I've been going backward in my income since then. My income in life has gone the wrong way for most people's curves because I don't want to be trapped by money, and that's how I felt for a long time. I felt really trapped by money. But I will say that, those decisions early on. I feel like I did the more traditional, like, due paying. Like, I went in this very focused career direction. I did it for about 6 years. It enabled me to save responsibly in a 401k and, pay off some debt and just, chat. But I married someone who's super good with money. He also cares a lot more about money than I do, and I think that's important because I would probably be pretty reckless left to my own devices. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that all positioned me well. Now, would I do all that again, given the opportunity? I would not. I think if I had it to do over again, I probably would have. I think at this point I can say going to law school has been good for me because I think I understand our politics and our civics in a way that you just maybe can't in another way. And I value that. That's probably the extent of what I would do over again in terms of my career had I. But you know what? I mean, all roads lead to where you're supposed to be. So it's not like I have this, I don't sit around every day with a bunch of regret around it. I just also realized that I was on a path that really had nothing to do with what I'm really good at and what I really enjoy.
Yeah, I have not. Here's a fun fact about Sarah. I've worked a full-time job. I'm 36. I've worked an actual full-time 9-to-5 job for approximately a little less than 2 years total my whole life. Just not ever been my thing. So I graduated from college. I worked for 1 year. Well, it wasn't a year. It was like an October to a May at Planned Parenthood. Had an amazing boss. Loved that job. Then I went to law school. In the summers, I did an internship. I worked for a campaign, and I worked for Hillary's campaign. Then I left Hillary's campaign and worked for the Senate from, I think it was maybe July to February when I moved to Paducah. And I've not had a full-time, like a 9-to-5 job since then, which was February 2009. I didn't plan that. I actually really like routine. I think I could really get involved with a 9-to-5 job. It just never happened. The plan when we moved to Paducah, when I convinced my husband to move here, was I would have this baby, I would take the bar, and then I would get a job, like a 9-to-5 job. But first of all, I failed the bar the first time. I failed this is some crap too. I passed is it the NPRE? Is that what you call it? The hard part. The multi-state, the hard part. Passed that.
The MBE?
Yeah, the MBE. I failed the essay part by 0.05. I was 0.03 outside when you get a regrade, and everybody says if you get a regrade on the essays, you almost always pass. So, I mean, the good part was I just had to do the essay portion again, but it still sucked. So that sort of so by the time you can take the bar in July, then you can't take it till February. So by the time I had retaken the bar in February, by the time I found out about retaking it, the results, the situation was, well, we want to have another baby in 8 months. Who's going to want to hire me and then give me maternity leave? So then I had Amos, and by that point I was like, I don't think I want to be a lawyer. And I'd been blogging and doing the social. So I actually started making money. Griffin was born in May. I took the bar in July. Then I had 6 months where I just studied for the bar again. But then January I started teaching at the community college. And so that's when I started doing paid work. And then I started picking up social media consulting, and then I did blogging, and then here we are. But I just never happened. I wasn't trying to avoid it. Huh?
Did you ever take the bar again?
Yeah, I took it and passed. I'm licensed. I took the essay portion and I passed, and listen, also, I just want to say this too. I took that hard ass multi-state person, and the first time when I failed it for the essay portion, I took the bar in July. I had a baby at the end of May, mid-May. So I was breastfeeding, like I walked, and now I'm so mad I didn't sue like that one girl did. That one girl in Kentucky sued because they wouldn't give her a breastfeeding break. I mean, I walked out and my boobs were like gravel.
Ugh.
I mean, can you imagine what my hormones and everything were going on when I was trying to take that test with my boobs about to freaking explode? And she sued. I don't know whatever happened with that lawsuit because she said, you got to give me a breastfeeding break. This is bullshit. And I was like, why did I think to do that? I love to be outraged. Just
Yeah, so my path is much simpler, and I don't know what other adjective to use about it. I went straight from college to law school. I graduated from law school in 2006. I studied for the bar exam over the summer. I started working at the law firm in the fall. I took the Ohio bar. A few months later, I took the Kentucky bar.
ugh.
I would say I've not had a 9-to-5 job either. I've just had a lot more than a 9-to-5 job for 11 years now.
And I don't know where I get that from, but I don't like the workaholic. Like I would not ever describe myself as a workaholic. I'm a high energy, passionate person, but I'm not a workaholic.
Yeah, so I practiced for 6 years, and then I went to the firm and said, look, I think I can be more useful on the administrative side. Here's kind of a proposal. And then they put me in HR, and I was running HR for the entire firm. And then a couple years later, I went back to the firm and said, I don't want to do that anymore. I'd like to focus just on our Cincinnati market. And so that's what I'm doing now. And then about a month ago, I went back to the firm and said, hey, I'd like to do that less. And so I cut my hours back. And I hope that, that's something that can continue to happen as the podcast and my personal consulting stuff evolves. Because I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That has been consistent for me. I've always known, because that thing about authority, that I would really like to work for myself. So I feel like that's what I'm marching toward now.
I mean, I feel like probably, I started doing the community college and then I worked for a local magazine for a while, and I really loved the publisher of the magazine. But at one point, Nicholas looked at me and was like, you don't like bosses. That's okay. And I was like, yeah, I don't. And I had good bosses, like my boss at Senator Menendez's office. We should talk. We have not talked about his fraud trial on the podcast, by the way.
I wondered what you've been. I haven't wanted to bring it up because I thought it might be emotional for you. So
no, it's not emotional. I have a lot of respect for Bob Menendez. I don't think he really did it. I think they're going after him for shit. Everybody does. He's smart. He's Jersey. He'll be fine. But anyway, I had a great boss there and a great boss at Planned Parenthood. And I just, no one in my mom's side of the family. Like my mom is a librarian, and she technically has a boss, but she gets to do whatever she wants. If you've ever been to a school, the librarians kind of have free reign. My two uncles now snap on tools, so they're their own bosses. And my aunt was an interior designer. Now she's a real estate agent. So like nobody in my family has bosses. So I kind of looked around one day and realized it. I was like, oh. And I grew up, my stepdad sold insurance door to door and then quit and became a real estate agent. So he, worked solely on commission, is his own boss. So I think I just had that example. And they, especially Ron, always had such flexibility to like, I'm going to go do this today, or I'm going to work on this today. And I was like, yeah. And I'm an only child, so I always had total control over my environment and sort of how I spent my time. And it just works well for me.
I have aspects of all of that, but I also grew up like in a very compliant way. Like I do what makes the people around me happy. I derive a lot of my sense of worth from like what they think about me, what my grades are.
Yeah.
I remember like having this real moment when I thought, like, if I weren't a good student, what would I be? When I didn't know,
Have you ever read Emily Freeman's Grace for the Good Girl?
No, I've read excerpts from it because you've said it to me a couple of times. But
it's so good.
Yeah.
I read that book and I was like, yes.
You know what I think has broken all that for me, though, was having kids and specifically giving birth. I feel like that's when, like, oh, wait, I'm a whole human being capable of really interesting things. Maybe I should go with that.
I think my biggest, when I finally broke the good girl thing is when I lost the baby. I lost a baby at 20 weeks. And because my, like, 85% of my identity at that point was wrapped up in being a mother. And, like I told my therapist, you sort of have one job when you're pregnant, which is to have a healthy baby. And so when it doesn't work out, it's just really difficult not to blame yourself. And even though I would never look at my friend who's lost a baby and be like, you had one job, sister. Even though I was saying it to myself, I would never look at somebody I loved and say that. But that really helped me let go of like the defining myself and by my worth and, you know, doing the roles. And my at the time, my friend Todd was like, you cannot let your roles and your identity overlap so much. You're letting, I mean, there's supposed to be a Venn diagram with a smidge of overlap, but yours are like one circle. And so I try to be really careful about that. Even though Oprah says I'm a child of God and that's my worth, I should believe her. Mama Oprah. I just love her so much. All right. Well, I think we're out of questions. Sarah said thank you for answering hers. Do you have any on Twitter?
Nope.
I'm super tired because I have packed and I have removed wallpaper and painted. We installed storm windows today.
So have you sold your house yet?
No. Does anybody want to buy it? Y'all know how great it is to be in Paducah. If I have not sold you on that, y'all can come buy my house. It'll be amazing.
When are you closing on your new place?
October 20th. So I got to get the inspection this week. Everybody cross their fingers. Everything turns out okay. But this is a funny story. So as long as we've lived in this house, so 8 years, my husband has bitched about the storm windows. We need to do something about storm windows. Because like a lot of that, they have, the ones we have like plastic clips that draw them up and down, and the plastic clips were broken or the screens were out or whatever. We got to do, I mean, we cannot sell this house story through the storm windows. And I was like, fine, do the storm windows. But then in fairness, at points where I was like, I don't want to spend money on storm windows. There's like 50 other things I'd rather do. So finally he was like, we're going to sell this house. We're going to do something with the storm windows. So after 8 years of bitching about it and thinking it was this big project, it was literally like, buy them, pick them up at Home Depot, unscrew the old ones, screw in the new ones. It was like no big deal at all. Goes to show you, sometimes it's better just bite the bullet.
Then we're going to Tennessee this week.
Yes. I have
We're
an insane week. My week is bananas.
So that'll be fun. So I thought we could end, Sarah, with some ask our listeners anything from us.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
So here are things that I would love to know. I would like to know how y'all feel about crossover episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it interesting to you? When we go on other podcasts, do you listen to that? Do you like it when that happens? Do you like it when we have new people on our show? I still am kind of struggling with the right balance of interviews versus not having somebody else. We are working on some primers. I know everybody wants more primers. I promise that they're coming. But other than that,
let's say the reason they're taking long is because we're doing like a connected constitutional primer series.
Right. So it's going to be really good when it comes out.
Yeah. But there's a lot of the Constitution to talk about.
And as I've been working on the first part of it, I realized we had like one episode for the Constitution, and we're going to move on to the Bill of Rights. I'm realizing, that's probably not going to get it done. So, but anyway, Sarah, what do you want to know from our beloved patrons?
I would like to know, here's something we've been talking about with Megan. Who reads the book club? Would you like the book club group to be a Facebook group instead of just on Goodreads? Do you like the book club episodes, or do you only pay attention if you read the book? How do you feel about those? I've got one coming out for the August book soon, hopefully. And I would also like to know about the interviews. Is there anything else you'd like to see, particularly of the bonus episodes on Patreon? Yeah, that's it. Or show, and always show topics.
I have one more. I would love to know like what you're feeling about social media generally is. Like, we've been talking amongst ourselves about like because social media is very time consuming.
Yeah, it is.
A way that we really connect with, a portion of the audience, but it's a small portion. Like, if you look at our show downloads versus our social media channels, is a very small portion of the audience that's coming to social media. And it's time consuming. So we're trying to think about like, where do people really want to be, and what do they really want to get out of this when they engage with us on social media? So any feedback would be awesome too.
I think this is also an appropriate ending image. Look at this dog.
Oh, bye, Cookie.
Cookie, you are so lazy and sleep. Oh, that's really cute. Look how cute that is. All right, that was fun.
Bye, dog. Hang on.
Yes.
I'll take you on a little trip to see my dog.
All puppies all the time.
Public service announcement. Kentucky's at 24-14.
My husband is cheering about football over here too.
Well, I mean, do people watch Kentucky football?
He does.
All I remember about Kentucky football is when they had that guy they called Fat Quarterback.
Oh, it's dark. I don't know if you're going to be able to see. Here's Lucy.
Oh, Lucy.
Comfy. Can you see her at all?
No, know. She's too dark. She's the same color as the couch.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Thank you, guys. We're so excited to have made our goal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, seriously. All right, this has been fun. We'll see y'all next month for another bonus episode on the Patreon.